Hey guys. So I wanted to hop on and talk to you guys some more about herb safety. Just like interactions, different things that the herbs do. And it's not necessarily like side effects of herbs, because I don't think really herbs have side effects for the most part, unless you take like too much of them. Obviously, like if you take too much of any medicine, it can give you side effects like nausea, vomiting, all that stuff. But anyway, I have a list. I don't normally make lists because I like to kind of just like wing it, but with this I didn't really want to miss everything or anything, so you guys could kind of get all the info. But first and foremost, you need to be careful when you're taking certain herbs that do certain things and you're taking them with other herbs that kind of do the opposite. So like, say for example, if you're taking an herb that lowers your blood pressure and then you take a different herb with it that raises your blood pressure. So you have to think like your body has one herb raising and one lowering. That's not going to go well. If you take, so like they have herbs that thin your blood. Okay. So like if you take a blood thinning herb and you're on like anticoagulants, that's not going to go well. Like if you're taking like warfarin or Lovenox, and you happen to take one of these other blood thinning herbs, I can list in the comments some of the herbs and like some of the different things that they do, but there's just, you know what it is, there's just so many different ones. That's why I always tell people, like, pick one or two herbs and just learn everything about them. Like what I did was, because I do run a business, so I have to keep track of like all the herbs and all the things that I use, and I only use certain herbs. So I made a list of my herbs that I use, and then different things like the first one, blood pressure. Does it raise or does it lower it? This one lowers. Most of them lower your blood pressure, so you need to be careful if you already have low blood pressure, or if you're on like a medicine that lowers your blood pressure, like propranolol. And then in the second one, I have medical interactions. So with medical interactions, there's a main few categories that an herb is going to fit into. And if you're not in one of those categories, for the most part, you should be safe. Obviously, pregnancy is one of them. If you're pregnant, you should always be careful and always ask your doctor, because there are even herbs out there that can cause uterine contractions and make you go into early labor. So that's huge. You guys don't want to mess around when you have the babies involved. There's also herbs that you can take that kids can't take. So like if it's like a kid under 6 months or a kid under a year, a baby in your belly, like that kid can't be exposed. Like cinnamon is one of them. Like, did you know cinnamon? Like, who would think a kid can't take cinnamon, right? But they have to be 6 months or older. Like if you want to season anything with cinnamon, like even like oatmeal that you're giving them, I don't know. But so medical interactions, mainly it's if you're taking anticoagulants, like I said, the blood thinners, if you're taking diabetic medication, because there are herbs that will regulate your blood sugar, but there are also herbs that will raise or lower your blood sugar. So you need to be very careful with that. So like if you're taking, obviously, like, I'm going to draw a blank with the medicine, diabetes medications. I'll just say that. Sorry. If you're taking diabetic medications and you're taking something that's going to raise your blood sugar, it could make you go into like a diabetic attack and possibly coma. So always, if you're taking any medications, basically, you know, you always want to make sure you check anything you're taking. So it's not only just making sure you're checking what you're taking with the medications you're on, it's making sure you're checking what herbs you're taking together, because they could interact. So it's anticoagulants, birth control. There are certain herbs that deactivate birth control, and Lord knows that like 95% of the female population is probably on birth control if you're under the age of what, like 65? I don't know. But if you're taking birth control, there are ones that deactivate it. There are actually, like, I don't know if you guys saw my video on St. John's wort. St. John's wort boosts your metabolism, which makes your liver process things faster. And in turn, it actually processes the herbs out of your system. So, well, not the herbs, the medications, sorry. It processes your medication. So if you're there and you're taking like anti-anxiety medication or depression medication or birth control, and you take St. John's wort, it's basically like, and you go and you like, oh, I'm pregnant. That's weird. I'm on birth control. Well, that's why. And which is weird because St. John's wort is so commonly sold in stores. It's like one of them, that and like echinacea, which I'll also tell you, they sell them in stores and they don't even warn you about this stuff, which echinacea you can't even take long term, because if you can take echinacea every day, but I want to say, don't quote me on this, always do your own research. I want to say echinacea you can take for up to like 4 to 6 months safely. But there are some herbs where if you take them long term, they can cause damage. So certain herbs that you would need, like echinacea, you would only take during like the winter season when you need to boost your immune system, right? Like, so echinacea is for immune boosting. So you're not gonna want to take it during the summer. And if you're like, oh well, I like it because it's anti-inflammatory too. Well, there's always a different anti-inflammatory you can find that you can take during the summer, so you're not taking the echinacea, because it is one of the big ones that you can't take long term, which again, you're buying it in like Walmart or grocery store, and they're not telling you these things. It's so super dangerous, because I know as consumers, we always go to the store and we buy stuff and we think like, oh, it's here, so it must be safe, right? Or if there's something wrong, they'll put it on the bottle, right? But like, that's not true at all. Companies just want you to buy their stuff and they want you to take their stuff, so they're not going to tell you this. But also, there are also certain medications like that you like. I'd be careful with, like finasteride, warfarin, carbamazepine. So with that, again, it goes back to you guys doing your research. And I can give you information, but I can only give you so much, and I can't give you it on everything. So if you pick a certain herb and you're like, that sounds like something I want to take, Google. Literally, all you have to do is Google, like, can I take finasteride with catnip? You know, and it literally will tell you right there. And if you don't trust Google, find a book. There's plenty of books that have catnip. It's pretty common. Most herbs that you're going to start out using are pretty common and are going to be in books. So you can find out that kind of stuff there too if you don't trust Google. So let's see what else. Oh, huge one. If you're taking something for like anxiety or depression, you want to be very careful with the sedative herbs you're taking. So like if you are taking those medications, for example, you don't want to take them with something like valerian root or catnip or passion flower, or like lemon balm, things that are going to be a sedative to like try and make you sleep. And because you've already got one downer and you're taking another, so it's going to be like, and if you're taking a prescription for sleep, you don't want to take an herb for inflammation that might also make you sleepy. So there's that interaction too. But just be careful, because hi Abby. Just be careful with that, because you don't want to take herbs that are going to do things that are doing the same thing as your medication, because if you find that they are, there's always going to be a different herb you can take that will do what you need it to do that won't do the same thing as your medication. You just have to do your research. Like, let's see. I'm trying to think of an example. I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, look in the bags and you can find it. Sorry. I got you a big, look, Abby, I got you a big thing of Tic Tacs. Yeah. So you want to be careful taking things that are going to do, so layered with that. Yes, you want to be careful taking things that are going to do the same thing as the meds that you're taking, but you're going to want to be careful taking, like, if you're taking, say, lemon balm, which makes you sleepy, and you're taking valerian, which also makes you sleepy, you have to remember you're going to get double that effect. Some people are like, oh, I want like a tincture that's going to do this, and this for me. But what I do is when I'm making my tinctures, I don't add 5, 6, 7 herbs. I try to find 2 or 3 select herbs. I don't usually go more than 3 unless I have to. I'm actually in the process of making like a belly fat burning tincture for people, and it has like 6 in it, and it drives me nuts because I'm like, there shouldn't be 6, but each one of them does something different to burn belly fat. But that aside, I try to find 2 or 3 herbs tops that will do everything I want to do, because like if you are like, okay, so this herb does inflammation, and okay, cool, and you have this other herb you want to put in and it does inflammation and it helps you also with pain, you don't need to put this one because it's just for inflammation, so leave this one out. Just use the one that covers both. You know what I mean? Like, try to find herbs that are well-rounded enough to cover everything you need in the least amount of herbs possible, because you have to think. So say you buy a tincture, they usually come in like 1 ounce, 2 ounce, 4 ounce. You're buying 2 ounces, okay? And 2 ounces of herbs is like that tall and like that around. It's not very big. And you have like 6 different herbs in there, right? Like, so you're going to have like that much of each herb in the bottle. And that's for like weeks of taking it. So how much work is it really going to do to help you? Whereas if you have a bottle, and it's that much 50-50 of 2 different herbs that all do the same thing as what the other 6 do, you're getting so much more of each herb to do what it's supposed to do. So it's like taking, like if you were to take a capsule of something and it's got 2 different things in it, and only putting, like, say a capsule is this long, and only putting like this much of one and that much of the other. Like, it doesn't make sense. So try to make sure when you're making tinctures or salves or balms that you're using the least amount of things to get the most effect from them. When I was in the process of making like a nerve pain balm and a muscle pain balm, and I kept finding all these great herbs that help with nerve and help with inflammation, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna put them all in there. I think at one point I was up to like 8 different things in each one, and I really sat and I was like, okay, well, these are like the best for inflammation, but this one is also great for inflammation, but it also helps with healing your bones faster after they break. So like, which one am I gonna put, right? Like, I'm gonna put the one that has the most benefits in there. So you just wanna make sure that my thing was I was just getting so excited. I was like, oh, this is a great herb, and that's a great herb, and that does great things. And just pick what you need and use what you need, because the less you use in it, the more it's going to work for you. And I found that in the beginning when I was making my balms, I made like tester ones. The ones that I made that had more different herbs in them were less effective than the ones that I made that had like 2 or 3 and worked amazing. So like now my fiance swears by one of my balms that I make because it works so well, and it's only got 2 herbs in it versus the original version of it I made that had like 5 or 6. So it's quality, not quantity, basically, is what you got to do. Other things, I'm just trying to check my list and see what like I'm not covering yet. You want to make sure that you're looking to make sure it's an herb you can take long term. Now, I know I touched on this with echinacea, but you'd be surprised how many herbs you cannot take long term. So like things like echinacea that you don't really need to take long term, don't. Things like for sleep, right? Like sleep, they always recommend you take them until you get yourself into a good pattern of sleep, and then you stop taking them. And then if you kind of lose that pattern of sleep again, you can start taking them again. So it's not something you want to take every night. But a lot of herbs will be like some I know, like catnip. No, not catnip. I'm trying to think. Ginger, you can take long term. I have actually, you know what? I'm making something and I want to see. Okay, I have it. I'm in the process of making some things, different tinctures mixed for like specific body systems. And I actually was looking up my ingredients, and I have a list of which ones that I'm using for the different tinctures and if they can be used long term or not. So like, for example, peppermint, you cannot take it at a high dose for long term. You can only use a low dose for short term. Ashwagandha, you can only take it for 8 to 10 weeks safely, but then you need to take 2 to 4 weeks off of not taking it, and then you can start taking it in. So they basically cycle the herbs. And you have to think, like with any medication, the longer you use the medication, the less effective it's going to be, right? So like, it's the same with herbs. Like, so if you know you have 10 different herbs and 3 of them are great anti-inflammatories, what I would suggest is cycling through them. So like every 1 or 2 weeks, switch which one you're taking for the inflammation, right? So like take one for 2 weeks and then switch to another one for 2 weeks, and then another one for 2 weeks, and then back. And you're going to have the great results from as if though you were just taking it for the first time. Garlic, you can take long-term. Turmeric, you can take, as long as you're not taking it in like crazy high amounts, you can take it for long-term. Ginger, long-term. Milk thistle, long-term. Valerian root, you can take it for 30 days-ish, and then you have to take like a week off, and valerian is for sleep. So again, that goes in hand with the sleep. Chamomile, you can take forever and not die. Chamomile is like the most gentle, friendly herb. Lemon balm, you can take it for 4 to 6 months on, and then off you have to take a week off. So goldenrod, you can take forever. Holy basil, forever. Wild lettuce, for pain, take that as needed. You can take it daily, but you don't want to take it for more than 7 days in a row. You want to take it as you need it. So you're not using it to like live off of, you're just using it to help reduce the pain to a tolerable, livable rate. So that's kind of like, again, and you're going to hear me say this 1,000 times, and I'm saying it because it is 100% so true, 100%. Do your research. Do not believe what you've been told. Always, always, always find things for yourself. And don't just assume that things are okay, because you'd be surprised what isn't. Like, I never ever would have thought echinacea would be something that you can't take long term, right? Like, that's like, it's echinacea that's been around forever on shelves, right? Like, it's super popular, so you think it's super safe, but it's not. And I guarantee you, I challenge all of you to go to your local store and look at the echinacea bottles and tell me if they say that you cannot take them long term. Here's something scary that I found in my researches. There's a particular herb that literally, if you take it internally long term, literally slowly destroys your liver. So it's used, this is another thing I was going to talk about. There's certain herbs that are only good topically, and there's certain herbs that you can ingest. Most of them are ingestible, but there's more so just a few that you can only use topically. Like, so arnica, for example, okay? Arnica, if you ingest it enough long term, which is like been a debatable thing. Like, some people say, well, you'd have to ingest super high amounts of it. And some people say just ingest it long term, even if it's like a small amount. It will destroy your liver. And so you can use it topically because you're just absorbing it through your skin, and eventually it's like such a small amount. It's not going to do the damage that if you were to take it internally. But so when I was making arnica, I actually made it into a tincture because I made the tincture before I did my research. And when I found that out, I was like, oh my God. So I put a little skull and crossbones on the bottle, and I was very surprised because I looked into it, and they sell arnica tea at grocery stores, and I'm like, Amazon. So like, you're ingesting arnica. And I read somewhere, like I said, even in small amounts, it can still long term, as long as you're taking it long term, do damage. So like, I wonder if those tea boxes have warnings, and I would almost bet anything that they don't. So you need to be careful. Again, comfrey, you need to be careful ingesting, because comfrey is one that heals tendons and bones when they're broken, but it's not really good to take internally, like in small doses, which I actually, while on the subject, I want to talk to you guys about elderberries. And I don't want anyone to freak out, because this is not like, I say this with the most lightheartedness to it. Like, elderberries contain a substance that turns into cyanide. And a lot of people don't realize that. And if you eat enough elderberries, it can poison you. But here's the thing. You'd have to eat like bags and bags and bags of raw elderberry, okay? And most of the time when you get, not most of the time, all the time, when you get like elderberry gummies, elderberry syrup, anything, elderberry honey, the person making it has cooked the berries. So for elderberries to be cooked, all the cyanide, for the cyanide to cook off, it takes about 10 minutes at about like 100 degrees for that to be cooked off. So eating raw elderberries, you can get cyanide poisoning. But who really eats raw elderberries, right? So, but like, I mean, if you're in the wild and you're like, oh, elderberry, let me try one. But I mean, you're just trying one or two. You're not eating like bags and bags and bags to poison yourself. And so anytime you're making anything elderberry, you want to always make sure that you're cooking it, which again, to make what you're making, you always usually have to cook it. I think, because I make gummies and I make the syrup, and when I do both, I cook it both, stovetop. So, yeah, so just cook it for at least 10 minutes and you're good. You're good to go. But let's see. The elderberry is not the only one like that too. There are a couple other where you shouldn't eat the berries. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I know, like looking into herbs in passing, I've seen them before. So it's not very many though. I think, let's see. Oh, there's not many herbs, but there is a couple that I've come across where you cannot take them with food. So that's something you want to look into too. So like, say you're eating dinner, you can't take certain herbs for like an hour before or an hour after you eat food, because it for some reason the herb can't activate and work with food in your system. There's different herbs do it for different reasons. So I'm not going to be like, oh, it's because this, and this. But each herb has a different reason why it doesn't work when you take it with food. So you want to look, if you want to take your herbs with dinner, before dinner, in the morning, at night, if they're best. Obviously, you don't take sleep herbs in the morning or you're going to fall asleep unless you have anxiety, and you take a less amount in the morning just to kind of calm you, because like a calming herb, an anxiety herb is usually a sleep herb too, because if it's all in dosing, like you obviously take like less. I would say take a third of what you would take to go to sleep to calm yourself, and you can take it a couple times a day, and then if you need it for sleep, also take it before bed and take like a higher dosing before bed. You want to take it like 15-20 minutes before you want to try and fall asleep. Let's see. Like marshmallow root is one of the ones you can't take for an hour after you eat. That's one of them. I wrote down that as an example. Okay. Did you know that you can't take lavender? So this is like, everybody loves lavender, right? It's in like everything. Did you know that you're not supposed to go near like true, real lavender if you have heart conditions? I didn't know that. Like I never knew that until I looked into it, because I was using like lavender oil and to scent things, and I'm sure this isn't one of the like. I'm sure this isn't one of the you have to take immense doses of it to have it affect you. I think this is one of the, if you have prolonged exposure to it, it can affect heart issues that you might have. I don't think it gives you heart issues, but I think if you have heart issues, it affects them. So again, if you're curious about that, you can look into that. I was saying earlier, and I'll probably end on this. There are certain herbs that you cannot give to kids, and you wouldn't even think, right? Like I said, cinnamon before. I never would have thought that you can't give cinnamon to a kid. Let me see what else. So cinnamon, they have to be 6 months and older. No clove oil. I wouldn't have guessed that either, because a lot of people use clove oil for teeth pain. And you think like kids have teeth pain, you're just, oh, let me just put a little clove oil, right? No, you cannot do that. So I don't know what the age limit is on that. I didn't put an age limit, and usually when that's the case, it's like 12 years old or so. Stinging nettle, 12 and above. It's safe for kids that are 12 and above. Black walnut hull, which I know a lot of parents use for like, I want to say it's for like getting worms and stuff out of you, like parasite cleanse. Comfrey root, again, it's dangerous for adults to take internally. You should never give it to a kid. I wouldn't put anything on a child that has anything to do with comfrey root, obviously, or arnica. Catnip. Did you know catnip is not safe for kids? I never would have guessed that either. And I have a little exclamation point next to the no, so I'm assuming, I didn't write down the reason, I just wrote yes or no. I'm assuming it's for a pretty good reason, and it's pretty bad for kids. So I would definitely avoid catnip. Burdock root, 18 and older. Echinacea, 12 years and older. Elderberry, never give it to someone under 1 year. Cayenne pepper, which is for like pain. So, I mean, obviously you wouldn't give that to a kid, but 2 years and up. Black cumin seed, 3 years and up. I know a lot of people have been doing that whole like black cumin cleanse thing where they're taking it and giving to their kids. So just be careful with black cumin. Valerian root is 8 years and up. Arrowroot is 6 months and up. But I mean, there's really no reason to give that to a kid anyway. Aloe vera is 12 years and up, right? Isn't that weird? Because like when your kids get sunburned, what's the first thing you think to put on them is aloe vera. I never would have guessed that. And oregano oil, which actually is a great antibiotic, if you didn't know. It's actually one of my favorite antibiotics. Like you can take it if you have a respiratory infection. If you have an infection, I did a video and it didn't get a lot of views, and I'm guessing because the title of it was like natural antibiotics. So they probably were like, nope, we're not going to show that to anybody because we don't want people to know. But if you look in it, it goes over a couple natural antibiotics you can use that are really great. And they're not just like, oh, they're like, they clean things out. They don't clean it out. They are antiviral, anti-infection, anti-dirty. So you can actually put some of them on cuts if they're infected. You can take them internally if you have internal infections. There's one you can take, I'm actually in the process of making for UTIs. I found oregano oil is actually really good for yeast infections. Like curing yeast infections. I shouldn't say that. In the herb world, you're not really supposed to say like cure, heal, all, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be careful with my wording, but they help. They support. They support the health of yeast infection. I don't fucking know. But so that's it. If you guys want to check out that video, it does go over all the natural antibiotics you can take. I'm going to make a video. Actually, I'm going to do a reel probably sometime this week that goes over one herb, one item that you should always have in your herbal medicine. So you guys keep your eyes peeled for that, because this is serious. Like, this is something that if you're a parent especially, you should not live without. So I'm going to end it there. I hope you guys were able to learn something from what I went over. And if there's anything you guys want me to go over or you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments and let me know. Because I'm just kind of winging it. Like, I literally have a note thing in my phone, and I'm like, oh, I should tell people about that, or I should tell people about this. But this was one that I did do a shorter video on, but I felt like it needed to be touched on in a longer video because there's so much information, and it's not necessarily giving you the details of everything as it is saying like, hey, this could be a situation, you may want to look into it. So like, there are things that interact with blood thinners. There are things that interact with diabetic medication. So look into that, you know, get the information for yourself. It's funny because I used to work in network marketing, and my upline used to tell me, be a hunter. Like, go out and find the information. And that always kind of stuck with me because, like, I like to dig and find information before I'll go and ask somebody for it. So be a hunter, find the information. And there's just, it's work, but it's so worth it. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go. I'm going to finish my Chipotle. And I'll talk to you later. Bye. So want to say bye? Quick.
Bye.